There's a reason Stephen King never let these two meet on the page, because if they did, one of them would not survive the encounter. This story is not about a clown, and it's not about a gunslinger. It's about what happens when a predator finally meets someone who does not taste like fear. Deep under Derry, something has been eating for centuries. Not randomly, not chaotically, but carefully, with patience, preference, and rules. Rain fell like shards of glass across the streets of Derry, drumming against cracked asphalt and rusted rooftops. The city smelled of wet decay, of old secrets long buried, and beneath it all, a darker scent lingered: iron, copper, something alive and hungry. Somewhere in the maze of alleys, something waited. Roland Deschain moved silently, his coat plastered to his shoulders, his boots splashing in puddles reflecting the fractured lights above. The last gunslinger's eyes were cold, precise, scanning every shadow, every flicker of movement. He had tracked whispers, rumors of children vanishing, of streets alive with unnatural laughter. And now he had arrived at the source. The alley was narrow, lined with the broken windows of abandoned buildings. A figure floated above the wet ground, impossibly still, impossibly wide. Pennywise. The clown's face was painted in jarring colors, a grotesque parody of joy, but the grin was real, too wide, too sharp, and wet. The smell hit Roland before he could fully see it. Copper and decay, the odor of fresh meat. Ah, the voice slithered from between glinting teeth. A guest, just in time for dinner. From the shadows, faint movements flickered, shapes of children, twisted and distorted, caught in the grasp of some invisible force. They screamed silently, faces contorted, eyes wide with terror. Pennywise's claws sank into them effortlessly, pulling them close. With a sound like wet tearing, he consumed them. Not just their flesh, but the terror etched into their very being, their panic, their terror, their despair, mingled with the iron tang of blood. It filled the alley like a choking fog. Roland's hand tightened on his revolvers. He had faced monsters before, horrors that could warp minds and shatter worlds. But this feeding was something ancient, almost ritualistic. Pennywise ate with purpose, savoring not just meat, but the essence of fear itself. The victim's screams, though silent, echoed in the mind, amplifying the horror. Each bite seemed to thicken the air, heavy with dread, sticky with the echoes of what had been torn from life. The clown lifted a dripping hand, crimson slick along its long, pale fingers, and looked directly at Roland. You smell of courage and exhaustion. I wonder which will taste better. Roland did not flinch. He had been trained for this, a lifetime of discipline, of focus, of seeing death without surrendering to it. Gilead had forged him, and the midworld had tempered him. He knew this creature could not be fought like a man. This was an evil older than worlds, a predator of flesh and fear. Yet he would not turn aside. Pennywise chuckled, a wet, echoing sound that made the walls of the alley pulse with shadow. He leapt from the air, landing on the slick ground with unnatural grace. The shadows around him rippled, coiling into shapes of monstrous children, snarling with teeth that gleamed even in the gloom. Roland fired. The revolvers barked, bullets ripping through forms that seemed almost real, almost solid, but for every figure destroyed, 3 more emerged, pulled from the wet darkness, writhing in silent agony. The clown hissed in amusement. Clever, but you cannot understand me. Every scream, every heartbeat, every flicker of fear. It is food. And you, gunslinger, are the freshest morsel yet. The alley seemed to narrow, walls bending, shadows reaching, trying to trap him. Roland moved with deliberate precision, his boots splashing through blood-tinted puddles, revolvers raised, eyes scanning. He had survived centuries of war, faced men and monsters alike, but even he felt the chill of something utterly alien, a predator that consumed the living, seasoned with terror, that thrived on the grotesque dance of fear and death. Pennywise lunged, claws outstretched, ripping through the illusion of safety. Roland fired again, the roar of his revolvers cracking through the rain. The bullets found meat and shadow alike, tearing through the phantoms the clown conjured. Yet the grin never faltered. He was feeding constantly, a blur of movement, teeth gnashing through shapes that Roland could barely discern as human. The smell of iron was thick in the air. The tang of raw, freshly harvested meat mingled with the ghostly cries of terror. "You think you can stop me?" Pennywise hissed, voice low and wet. "I have dined on centuries of fear. I have tasted worlds, and you will not escape." Roland's mind was already calculating. Every shadow, every ripple in the air, every whisper of movement was a clue. Pennywise was clever, cunning, but predictable in his patterns of hunting. The clown's hunger gave him away. Even monsters could not hide the rhythm of feeding. Step by step, Roland advanced, weaving through the puddles, ignoring the mist of spectral children and the wet, glistening remnants of those who had been torn apart. The feeding continued, the alley alive with the wet, echoing sounds of consumption. Pennywise lifted a small, broken form from the shadows, craning it in front of him as if to savor the final moments. The victim's eyes were wide with silent terror, mouth opening in a scream that Roland could almost hear in his mind. The clown's fangs sank deep, the wet sounds of flesh tearing, and the air thickened with the coppery stench of life being extinguished. Roland did not move until the feeding paused, and until Pennywise's gaze lifted to him. And then, finally, he spoke. "You will not last long, clown. I have walked through centuries of death, through worlds falling into ruin, and I do not flinch." Pennywise tilted his head, and considering him. "Ah, a fearless one. How intriguing. Perhaps you will be the last course." The gunslinger tightened his grip, breathing steady, eyes unblinking. This was not a fight of bullets alone. This was a contest of will, a confrontation of predator and hunter. And Roland Deschain, the last of the gunslingers, did not retreat. The rain fell harder. The alley shimmered with movement, the shadows pulsing like living things. Pennywise crouched low, licking at the remnants of his feast, each movement deliberate, each bite an echo of centuries of hunger. And above it all, the gunslinger moved forward, step by step, ready to face a horror older than worlds, his resolve unshaken. Because the gunslinger did not run. And the clown, Pennywise had not met an opponent like this in a very long time. Derry did not sleep. It waited. The rain slowed to a thin, needling drizzle, as if the city itself were holding its breath. The alley behind Roland lay ruined, slick with water, shadows trembling against brick walls, the lingering stench of iron and fear hanging thick in the air. Pennywise had finished feeding. That much was clear. The hunger had dulled, but it had not vanished. It never did. Roland Deschain stood unmoving, revolvers low but ready, eyes fixed on the clown. Pennywise wiped his mouth with the back of one pale hand. The grin softened into something contemplative, almost curious. "You did not scream," he said. "Most do, even the brave ones, especially the brave ones." "I do not scream," Roland replied. The clown's eyes flickered just for a moment. Something like irritation passed through them. That was new. The street buckled, not violently, not all at once, but like wet cardboard slowly collapsing under weight. The alley stretched, elongated, bricks crawling like insects, windows multiplying and then vanishing. Derry was folding in on itself, reshaping to suit its master. Pennywise drifted backward, rising slightly from the ground, arms spreading as though welcoming the city's embrace. "You see," he said softly, "this place loves me. Every drain, every cellar, every child's bedroom where the light goes out too soon. I do not hunt here, gunslinger. I harvest." The ground split. Roland leapt aside as the pavement cracked open, revealing darkness beneath. Pipes, roots, and something older, pulsing slowly, like a massive buried organ. From the fissure came sounds, muffled crying, scraping, and the echo of chewing carried through stone and water. Not one victim. Many. Roland's jaw tightened. He had seen worlds die. He had watched cities burn and kingdoms rot from within. But this was different. This was not destruction. It was consumption. Derry was not being destroyed. It was being used. "You've nested," Roland said, "like a parasite." Pennywise laughed, sharp and delighted. "Parasites need hosts. I am something better. I am the reason this place exists at all." The clown snapped his fingers. The streetlights went out. Darkness slammed down like a coffin lid. Then movement. Shapes poured from doorways and storm drains, crawling, staggering, limping. People, or what remained of them. Their bodies were wrong, too stiff, too loose. Faces frozen in expressions of final terror. Not alive, not fully dead. Puppets, animated by fear soaked so deeply into them that it had become structural. Roland fired. The guns thundered, flashes ripping through the dark. Bodies fell, collapsed, shattered into shadow and wet debris that dissolved before hitting the ground. But they kept coming. Dozens, hundreds. The city vomiting its dead back at him. Pennywise watched from above, floating lazily. "Leftovers," he said. "Not much taste anymore, but useful." One of the figures reached Roland, fingers clawing at his coat. He slammed the butt of his revolver into its face and felt bone give way. No blood spilled, only darkness, leaking like smoke from a broken vessel. Roland moved with brutal efficiency. Shoot, step, turn, fire. Every motion precise, economical. Gunslingers were not heroes. They were tools, and tools did not hesitate. Still, the pressure mounted. The dead pressed closer. The walls crept inward. The darkness thickened until even Roland's trained eyes struggled to track movement. Then Pennywise dropped. He landed in front of Roland with a wet crack, crouched low, teeth bared. Up close, the smell was overwhelming. Meat long dead and freshly torn. fear layered over it like rot and spice. "You know," the clown said conversationally, "children are best, tender, soft. But adults—" His grin widened. "Adults know what's coming. That makes all the difference." He lunged. Roland fired point blank. The bullet struck Pennywise's head and passed through it like water, the clown's face rippling, deforming, then snapping back into place. Pennywise slammed into Roland, sending him crashing through a storefront window in an explosion of glass. Roland rolled, came up on one knee, already firing. Shelves disintegrated, walls shattered. Pennywise moved impossibly fast, appearing and vanishing, striking from blind angles, herding rather than killing, hunting. Roland felt it then, the pressure inside his skull, a subtle tightening, memories pushing forward uninvited. Gilead, the smell of dust and blood, the faces of his fallen companions. Pennywise's voice slid into his thoughts like a blade. "So much loss," it crooned. "So much meat left behind." "No," Roland growled. He focused. On the tower. On the line of the beam. On the discipline burned into his bones. The illusion cracked. Pennywise recoiled slightly, hissing. "Ah," it said. "There it is. Your fear is not loud. It's old." Roland rose slowly, gun steady. "You're strong here," he said, "but you're still bound. This place is your lair and your cage." The clown tilted its head. For the first time, the grin looked strained. Derry shuddered. Far beneath them, something vast shifted, disturbed by forces older than the city itself. The beams trembled, faint but real, and Pennywise felt it, an intrusion, a presence that did not belong to this world's cycle of feeding. Roland Deschain did not belong here, and that made him dangerous. Pennywise stepped back, eyes narrowing. "This is not over," it said softly. "I will take my time with you." Roland nodded once. "I know." The clown dissolved into the darkness, laughter echoing through pipes and walls, retreating deeper into the city's veins. The dead collapsed where they stood, dissolving into nothing. Silence returned. Roland stood alone in the wreckage, rain washing glass and shadow from his coat. He holstered his guns and looked toward the storm drains, toward the underground arteries of Derry, toward the nest. The tower awaited him. But first, this thing had to be dealt with. The entrance was not marked. It never was. Roland found it behind an abandoned house on Neibolt Street, where the wood had rotted into black pulp and the porch sagged like a broken jaw. The storm drain yawned open beneath the structure, wide enough to swallow a man whole. From within came the sound of water dripping, and something else. A slow, rhythmic noise, almost like breathing. The city above seemed reluctant to let him go. Roland descended anyway. The ladder was slick with age and damp, each rung groaning under his weight. The smell intensified the deeper he went. Stagnant water, mold, rust, and beneath it all, the unmistakable scent of old meat. Not fresh, not rotting. Preserved. Curated. Pennywise did not waste. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber where pipes converged like veins. Symbols were scratched into the concrete walls, childish, uneven, but repeated endlessly. Circles, eyes, smiling mouths filled with teeth. Totems of fear, carved by hands that had never known peace. Roland's boots splashed softly as he advanced. Then the laughter returned. It echoed from every direction, layered, overlapping, high and shrill, deep and rumbling, adult and child at once. The walls began to pulse, contracting subtly, as if the chamber itself were alive. "Welcome," Pennywise said. He emerged from the darkness not as a clown, but as something wearing the idea of one. The colors bled and shifted, peeling away like wet paint. Beneath them, Roland glimpsed glimpses, too many limbs, wrong angles, a mass that refused a single shape. "You came into my stomach," Pennywise continued. "Most never do. Most are already part of it." Roland raised his guns. "You're not a god." Pennywise smiled wider. "No. Gods are chained to worship. I am chained to hunger." The chamber changed. The walls fell away, replaced by a vast void lit by sickly orange light. Below them stretched an impossible drop, and within it, shapes, countless forms suspended, cocooned in strands of shadow and bone. Humans, children, adults, some whole, some not, all silent, all waiting. Roland felt the weight of it press against his chest. "You keep them," he said. "I age them," Pennywise replied almost tenderly. "Fear ripens over time. Fresh terror is sharp, but aged fear? It melts. It soaks in." A tremor ran through the void. Something deeper stirred. Roland felt it then, the echo of the beams, faint but undeniable. Pennywise was not merely feeding, he was anchored. This place was a knot in reality, a wound where worlds thinned. "You're tied to the tower," Roland said. The grin faltered, just for a fraction of a second. "You speak of things beyond you," Pennywise said sharply. Roland stepped forward. "You're not alone. You never were. You're one of many." Silence. Then rage. The void erupted. Pennywise expanded, shedding the last remnants of the clown. What remained was colossal, asymmetrical, a thing of jaws and eyes and hunger without center. Teeth unfolded like collapsing bridges. Mouths opened within mouths, each whispering, chewing, laughing. Roland fired. The bullets did not wound. It was not that kind of body, but they anchored him. Each shot carried intent, will, the discipline of eld. The creature recoiled, shrieking as the void warped around them. "You do not belong in the cracks," Roland said, advancing. "I do." The pressure in his skull was immense now. Pennywise pushed back, flooding his mind with images, children screaming, friends dying, Gilead burning. Roland staggered, blood trickling from his nose, but he did not fall. He thought of the tower, of the endless climb, of the truth he had always known. This evil was not meant to be destroyed, only driven back. Roland reached into his coat and withdrew something old, an artifact from another world, another cycle, a remnant of Ka, heavy with meaning. He placed it at his feet and fired into it. The chamber screamed. Light tore through the void like a blade, severing the strands that held the suspended forms. They dissolved, not freed, but released, their fear spent at last. Pennywise shrieked, a sound that shook worlds. "No, this place is mine." Roland stood his ground as the void collapsed inward, reality snapping back like a wounded animal. The creature recoiled, folding into itself, retreating into deeper darkness, deeper cracks. "You'll return," Pennywise hissed, shrinking, reforming, becoming smaller, weaker. "You always do. So do I." Roland lowered his guns. Maybe. The chamber settled, the tunnels stilled. Derry exhaled. Roland turned away, climbing back toward the surface. The city above was quiet now, empty in a way that felt earned. Behind him, far below, something slept. Not dead, never dead, but wounded. As Roland emerged into the gray dawn, he did not look back. The tower called, and the cycle moved on.